Hello?
Hey, what's up?
Hi, sorry about being such a dodo brain about the times. I don't know what I was thinking. Like, it's not like I don't do this all the time, but for some crazy reason, I just left our our last discussion on email thinking it
Yes.
was at 5. And I don't, and that's because I was just distracted. But in the days and hours since, you think I would have figured that one out?
I wasn't sure. And anytime, listen, whenever you do a podcast, like, you talk to people and listen, you're doing me a favor talking to me because, like I'm such a big fan and I love your music. So to me, I'm always mindful of that. So whatever it was, it doesn't matter to me. So thank you so much for the time.
You're the big lead singer of a rock band. I'm just the guitar player.
Yeah, nah, yeah, no. It's only because I don't know how to play the guitar that well. So therefore I have to at least write the songs. I always tell people if I didn't write the songs in my band, I would have gotten kicked out a long time ago because I'm definitely the least talented in there.
I'm not very good at playing guitar too, but I don't think I'd get kicked out because I put in like 10 times the effort of all those assholes. I'd
Yes.
still be there, but they'd always be talking more shit behind my back about my lack of rhythm.
Yeah, lack of rhythm. Actually, the bass player, shout out to Dave, who's also a huge Sam I Am fan. He always makes fun of like my timing. He tells me I have the worst metronome. So
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. I like like if you write the songs, then whatever the kind of weird rhythm, it's your own like kind of rhythm, so you can play it. So it's good to play with guys that are better than you because then they look like assholes a little bit when they're trying to figure out your crazy rhythm, and then you don't have to show how bad you would be if you were playing their own like sort of rhythm. So it works out for us.
it's so true. And also like I remember trying to like learn stuff. Like, when I was younger, like you'd buy Guitar World and you're like, oh, I want to learn how to play, I don't know, fucking a Nine Inch Nail song or something. And it never appealed to me. Like I would always like, try to learn, especially growing up with the hair bands. That's kind of like what I remember growing up. It's like, oh, I want to play Faster Pussycat or some shit like that. And I would always like give up and I'm like, I'm just going to write my own songs because it's like when you write, like, when I write, it's just like I could play it myself. And it's like I know the little nuances. So from that moment on, I'm like, I'm not going to learn any of these songs. I'm just going to write my own songs.
Oh, well, that's funny because that's kind of like I learn like still even in like my 50s, I still learn songs all the time.
Mm.
Uh, and all through like being in Sam I Am and other bands, like I, spent a lot of time learning other people's songs. And people like the first other guitar player, Sam I Am, never did that. Blair from like Knapsack and stuff never did that. And not to sound like an asshole, but I probably will. It's like I feel like I write like a diverse kind of music, and Sean, the other guitar player, Sam Man, for the last 20 something years, he knows how to play like every song there is, pretty much. Um, he writes very diverse. Whereas like like Blair and James was the first guitar player, Sam Man. Their songs, and I'm not bagging on them, but their songs sound very similar, and their rhythm's always the same. And Garrett also that had was a band, and they always start with the same rhythm, like so, like James is a downstroke picker, pretty much only. He's not really good at up and down,
Yeah.
and so his rhythm's always odd, uh, because he doesn't count like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. He's just like 1 and 2 and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 2, 8. It's just like kind of random because there's no downbeat and upbeat. It's all just downbeats.
It's all down. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and all this, but because he didn't learn other people's songs, and like all the guys that didn't learn songs, their chord choices are always really really similar, uh, and the rhythms are always really similar. And yeah, like not like I'm some great songwriter or anything, but I feel like in the context of like the stupid shit I do, it sort of has a little wider. Like this song sounds like Build the Spill. This song sounds like the Beatles. This song sounds like more punk, like Bad Brains or something, and it's a little bit more diverse.
No,
Should we start the podcast before, or
it's
did we already start it?
we already started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we already started. It doesn't like, it's we're just I had like questions and stuff like that, but this is so far way more interesting. So I was always like the only guitar player in the band for a while. So somebody who's playing I really enjoyed was Matt Skiba from Alkaline Trio, because he plays some really I just feel like he moves his fingers a lot. So then like growing up, like that's kind of what I was doing because I was the only one. So I'm like, I have to play rhythm and some type of lead, you know? So I always liked that style of playing. And then as time went on, I just thought it was a disservice and only have one guitar player in the band. So I was like, I'm just going to concentrate on writing songs. And then from there, I got to get someone who's fucking way better than me to like do all the fancy shit.
All right.
Did you,
yeah. The important thing is what you do, though. The important thing is the chords of a song and how they relate to the vocals, right? So if you get a guy like sort of like what I do, jump in there, do all the doodads and the counter melodies, that's all fine and dandy. But like you like you wrote the song. Like it doesn't matter what people put on top of it. Like the basic chords and your vocal melody is the shit. So you should I don't want you to get a big swollen head or a big ego, but you should be like a little bit less
I'm already fat. It's too late.
Well,
I'm already
you know what, you
fat.
look very Long Island to me. Like you look like Jay's brother from Iron Sheik or something.
Oh, that's funny shit. Yeah, shout out to Jay. So man, that's funny because he's like a year younger than I am. I remember playing a show a while ago and somebody thought that I was him. And they're like, were you in a band called, they mentioned one of his older bands, like it might've been like the Devil himself or something. And I was just like, no, but I know exactly what the fuck you're saying. So, and it's funny, the relationship you had with him. I remember going to see Samiam at St. Vitus for the, remember when the hurricane hit?
Yeah. You went to that?
I was there. I was
just talking about that last night.
I helped Jay sing.
That was like the hurricane. And so like we sold all the tickets, but like only like 120 people showed up because the buses weren't run. That was like right in the middle of the crazy hurricane. And so I remember we played and after we were like, went to Artie, like one of the guys that owns the bar. Sorry about that.
We know Artie
sucks or whatever. And we can't draw anyone in. He goes, oh no, man, you sold all the tickets. He said people are here. And then I felt a little bit better.
Yeah. Shout out to Artie, man. Artie's
that was another funny thing about that show is that a girl did a stage dive and she was like singing the whole time. And she did a bunch of stage dives, but one time out, Jason, the singer, Samiam, slapped her ass, but not like in a gross old man trying to cap a feel, just like fucking around. I'm drunk or whatever. And they had a kind of a little bit of a altercation, and he had to explain to her. I think he went up and talked to her after. He's like, I wasn't copying your ass. I was just like, hey, this is a weird show and we're all drunk or whatever. And then they made up. But I think she loves him, and then she got really mad, probably was ready to leave the show going, I hate that fucking band. And then they made up and it was all good.
So her name is Elena or something.
No, it wasn't Elena. We know Elena.
It wasn't her? Girl. Oh, I didn't know.
No, it wasn't her. It was another girl who actually flew out from LA.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought it was her.
Yeah, at that show, Elena and her were like they actually were taking advantage of the fact that it wasn't a crowded, like male dominated show, sort of, and they were just like fucking around. But yeah, the other girl, the little girl.
Okay. Well, I remember. So, all right. So my band, I remember we saved all our gas because the hurricane hit and we were like, you couldn't get gas. So I was like, listen, we have fucking tickets to see Samiam at St. Vitus. We're not going to go anywhere. I'm going to basically leave my car here. And when the show comes, if they make it there, we're going to drive there. And it was definitely weird for sure. Only like, whatever amount of people showed up. But, and it was a lot of fun because it just, like you said, we made like a really interesting night of it. And it's something that I'll never forget. And at the end of that show, we were outside and somebody had mentioned to Jay, your singer, he's like, yo, you guys should play this band Iron Sheik. And at the time, like we were friends with Iron Sheik. And I'm thinking to myself, like, holy shit. I'm like, they must be getting pretty big. They're about to just play with Samiam right now. And I think that's how that relationship really, like the very beginning of it and stuff. Cause now you and Mike do stuff, right?
Well, I knew Iron Sheik before that.
Okay.
Like, but I'm sure Jason, like the singer of Sam I Am, doesn't know things like that. I mean, he knows things about a lot of things, but usually doesn't know what's currently going on and anything like punk. He doesn't pay attention. And I'm not that he doesn't like punk or anything, but I'm just more like of a nerd that like I know about whatever little band from wherever, and he doesn't. But yeah, that's probably the first time he ever heard the word Iron Sheik. But yeah, and we've toured with him quite a bit since. Not so much toured, but did like strings of like 5 shows with him a bunch. And my I have a band in LA called Waysway, and we're doing a split 7-inch with Iron Sheik and stuff. Yeah, and me and all actually. When the first time we did like 5 shows with I kind of freaked the guys in Iron Sheik out a little bit because it took a minute, but I just bonded with Phil, the guitar player,
for sure,
like the musical guy of it, because everyone's saying like Phil hates everybody. And Phil just stays in his garage and he's grumpy or whatever. But for some reason, you and Phil are getting along. Like, what did you do or whatever? And I was like, oh, I don't know. It seems okay or whatever. And then every time we played with him since, I was like, oh, Phil, I want to hang out with Phil. And Phil's like, it's kind of like a puppy dog where like one time you could play with a puppy dog and he's like, yeah, I love you. And every other time he's just, it's just you. I don't care. Because every other time we've seen Phil, he's just like, oh, hey, Sergie, like, and it's not particularly friendly to me. But he was on the first trip to the point where like Mike said, like, you're like the Phil whisperer or something like that.
Yeah, the Phil.
Like a dog, Phil got bored of me, and I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
Phil, I still love you, even if you're just blasé about me."
Maybe he moved on to Colin now, but I remember we were recording with Phil because Phil did some great recordings, and one of the bonding conversations we had with Phil was our love of Sam I Am. So there's something about like Sam I Am as a band that like I feel like. When you connect with someone, even way beyond, like if you mention the Get Up Kids or Super Chunk, there's something about like a friendship that you like with that band in particular that it's like, I feel like not everyone knows Sam I Am, but
yeah, it's
like
the obscurity part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. The part of it, like that's the friend, like I've made friends where it's like, oh, you actually know a Stray. Like, it's like, okay, we're cool.
I talk about it all the time, especially in like this context, like a podcast, because I only do podcasts with people that know and usually love, like Sam I Am. And I do, one every other month or once a month or whatever. And yeah, like as opposed to an interview that maybe a record label might set up where the person's just like doing a job.
Yeah.
A music podcast is, in my experience, is almost always just someone that has unhealthy attachment to music and like Sam I Am and knows a lot about Sam I Am, like didn't even have to do research, like knows all my other bands. And it's like, otherwise, why would they get Sergie Loobkoff from like, anyway, because they're like, who's he? I don't know. But anyway, a common like theme about that I do is like they call like any like Ragged Cub or Knapsack or Sam I Am or what now Waysway, like bands, meaning guys in bands or people in bands like that. And I always go, yeah, we are like that, which means that we're kind of obscure and we're kind of like failures in the music industry. So like guys in bands aren't threatened by us, right? And so, and I always like to talk about like comedians are the same way. There's like comedians that are the stadium comedians. Like if you look like stadium comedians, usually comedians go, oh, that fucking asshole, he steals jokes and he's like a hack or whatever. But then you have people like some of my favorite comedians that are like unknown, that every comedian likes them. And why is that? It's because they're still playing at small little bars and whatever, and they're not threatening to them, right? Whereas the up and coming people or the people that are already huge are like, fuck those guys and stuff. So I do a podcast, and the podcaster goes, yeah, it's great. You're a band's band. It's great. It's like it's awesome that you're a band's band. And I go, yeah, that just means that we're unthreatening because we're not popular, right? and sometimes they don't believe my definition of what a band's band is, but like so many times, like I'll meet or even a big band. Like a couple years ago, I went to a party and Rise Against played, and I was just talking to those guys, and they were like, yeah, Sam I Am is a few band but going back to our van days, that we didn't argue. Like we always argue like about like the music or whatever. Like, oh, don't play that shit. Or like, oh, I love that shit and stuff. But Salmon's band that we all always agreed on or whatever, right? I'm not saying that they like Salmon's any of their favorites bands, but they all agreed on it, right? And I think it was the guy I know the least in that band, the singer Tim, and I sort of explained that thing. Yeah, we're like band, like we're not threatening. And he goes, no, I'm not like that. Meaning I don't feel competition with other bands, or I don't get jealous of other bands' success or whatever. And maybe because I'm an asshole, I just looked at him like squarely in the eye, and I go, don't bullshit me.
Yeah.
And I don't know him very well, so I don't know his sense of humor.
Sure.
I was just fucking with him.
Yeah.
Even though it's being dead honest. But I think he took it badly, and he was like, no, really. Like I was sort of saying, like, you got to be a politician. You fucking hate some of these bands, some of these younger bands right now that are passing up Rise Against or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's what I didn't say that word for word, but like, that's what I was getting at. But he sort of looked at me. Actually, kind of, I think, sort of stopped the conversation, and he wanted to talk to someone else after that.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah.
And I'm not criticizing him at all. But and I'm not saying I'm right, but I just feel like that's what bands ban.
No,
needs,
but
right?
and the thing is like, when you probably run into people too, but like I'm the same way. It's like if I could joke with you and we have that rapport, like you said, you don't know his sense of humor, and like that's how I would approach people, because I'm like, this is like, why would you be so serious about anything? This is just like whatever, so like sense of humor is definitely big. But yeah, right, that's great that that dude.
Well, I'm sure his sense of humor is vast and stuff, but it doesn't mean it clicks with mine.
No, for sure.
I like to like slightly fuck with people sense of humor, right? And it probably bites me in the ass. I probably think that skinny guy from Samiam is an asshole. He said something shitty to me once, and I'm like, no, it's just completely kidding.
But we talked about like Jason from Samiam, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna reach out to him because like you do all the podcasts. So I'm like, oh, you know what? I never hear from Jason, and anytime they play, like I always talk to him and stuff. And you were just like, like we had that discussion where you're just like, oh no, it's like I'll do this because I guess you mentioned Jason's sense of humor on podcasts, that sometimes people take it the wrong way.
Well, like I don't think that Jason or Sean has ever done an interview.
You guys did one with Artie for. You did the St. Vitus one.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of what I was about to say. It's like, I don't think either of them have ever done an interview, and this is going like for decades, or a podcast or anything, that they didn't completely take the piss out of it and make fun of the interviewer and then do inside jokes with each other, and never say any kind of information that's like relevant to anything. They just bullshit, right? Like, and start talking about shitting or what they had for breakfast, and purposely with their own sense of humor, like basically not really give what the interviewer wants, right? Because the interviewer wants to, like, are you guys going on tour next month, or what's happening? They would never answer that question, and if they did, they'd probably get it wrong. And so like that, like anytime there's an interview that's in person, or like I never do TV ones or filmed ones with either of those guys. I never really do interviews with those guys because I look like this like guy with stick up his ass trying to be a little serious and like give some information that people might want to hear about the band or what the interviewer might want to hear. And they're both basically making fun of the interviewer, and doing interviews the whole time. And, so like, yeah, like, I set that one up with Artie, but I think it came late or whatever, and they were doing it. So I just sat there and they talked the whole time because I look like such an idiot when I'm doing an interview that's a normal interview or a podcast with two guys that are making fun of the whole concept of doing an interview. But like, I really honestly, going back to our Atlantic days when we used to do like, dozens of interviews, sometimes a dozen a day, like press day kind of things. I just don't think that like Jason, for example, because Sean wasn't there at that time, has ever done an interview where a guy answers the question and he goes, "Oh, let me seriously think about that question, and here's the answer to that question," because he thinks it's stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, in a way, they're both like, without being really punk rockers, are way more punk than me or anybody, because they're just like, this isn't commerce, and I don't want to promote anything ever. You know what I mean? So they just like, like I say, they take the piss out of it.
Pretty amazing. And I know them and Artie, whatever Type 11, like you guys have history. So it was a lot easier to just be like, hey, we'll do this. But I got to say, so Ways Away came out, that the self-titled record came out in 2020. And I really liked Racket Club. Mm-hmm. But when I heard Ways Away, it just quickly became my favorite rock album of that year. Like I was pretty fucking blown away by it. Like anytime, and as a songwriter, I do this a lot. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I hear something like Rome with a Ghost and I'm like, fuck, I wish I wrote that, like you hear something like that, or like Die on the Vine. And even the fucking Random Beach House cover, which I think is amazing. But how did that band come about? Because it's that self-titled record is so fucking good.
I mean, the thing about Racket Club too, but less so, because Racket Club, the basic songs were all Blair, the singer, and then I just wrote them with him, right? Like Blair, for example, he doesn't really. I don't know if I shouldn't say he doesn't, but I don't know if he knows how to write a song like from beginning to end. I'm not sure he ever has. I've been in 2 bands with him, and I just don't think he ever did. Like beginning, middle, and all the doodads and stuff. But what he is like brilliant at is writing like a chorus or a verse and the skeleton.
That's a big
the
thing.
important parts of a song, right?
Yeah.
So Racket Club, except for one song, all the songs, the basic song is written by him, and then then me and him wrote it, and I add all the doodads, right? But and Samiam hasn't had a record come out since 2011. So what basically Ways Away is 9 of the songs that I've been writing since 2011. Musically, I'm talking about.
Okay.
And I somehow found like a guy that's young enough to be my son.
Yes.
That's a really good singer.
Great singer.
We're peers. Peers, and I look a little young, and he looks a little old.
Yeah.
So like, it's not like I'm in a band with my son, really. And I'm immature, actually, more than how we look. And he's also immature, but in a different way. But basically, he's written, like, we have like 25 songs, I think, at this point, because we have another record and a couple of singles.
Waiting.
But basically, I'd say if there's 25 songs, like 22 of them are songs I've written, and a big chunk of them are songs that go back to 2004.
Wow.
Some of them, and they're either songs that for the last 2 Samiam records we wrote and recorded, and Jason just didn't like them or didn't feel inspired. Because some of them are songs that we recorded the music to, but not vocals. Like we go in the studio to make Whatever's Got You Down in 2005 or 4, whatever year, and he only sang to 12 or 13 of them. But there was like 3 other ones that we recorded that I wrote that he just didn't sing to. And every record going back to You Freaking Me Out has a couple of songs that sort of got discarded.
Do you have melody ideas?
Wait.
Do you have melody ideas when you write them, or is that just up to like Jesse or like Jason?
Early on, like going back to like an early Samiam, I had wrote melodies and lyrics, just a bunch of songs, and I gave it to Jason. And Jason sort of like used that as a springboard, not the lyrics, but the melodies.
Yeah.
And then at some point I stopped doing the melodies because I would do them on guitar because I can't sing well enough to convey it. Because I was like, well, this doesn't work because I don't know how to write melodies that suit him. And then then I just stopped like after a stray, because I was just like, I don't want to push my shit on to him. That's like, I don't know if he would want me to or wouldn't want me to, but I would just like, I'm just not going to do that. So to answer your question, I don't do that anymore. Now I just leave it open. And with Blair and Jason, that means that a lot of them are going to get ignored because it's hard for them. But for some reason, me and Jesse, the singer of Ways Away, we're just so in tune that he has no problem writing melodies to my music. And he also, unlike the other two guys, he thinks it's easy. Like he thinks that because we're kind of aligned a little bit, that I throw underhanded softball pitches to him, where it's just like, he hears it once and he's just like, I have 1,000 ideas for this already, you know? But I didn't finish my thought. My thought, you like, why did that Ways Away sound record sound like we've been a band for a long time, as far as like the content sounded like pretty decent. And it's because these songs were like written, rewritten, and I've recorded and re-recorded some of them for like 15 years or whatever.
Is that frustrating though to you? Like,
yeah,
you know, like it is, right? Because like to me, like we write songs and we release 5 every like 6 months, because it's like otherwise I go crazy. So yeah, I would imagine it's kind of frustrating.
Well, for me, the thing is, like, not to go back to talking about you on your own podcast, but for you, like, because you sing,
yes,
and
yeah,
even if you're just gonna put that song out like on acoustic guitar and put it on YouTube on you, is your control of everything. But because I'm not like that, I'm not a singer-songwriter. I'm just like kind of a music writer. Well, I don't write music, so I'm a music maker-upper and guitar player. I depend on someone else if I want to do this at all, and it'd be really boring to these riffs or these songs to put out a garage band demo of just music. People are like, well, that's boring as shit, you know. And so it's frustrating for me because I'm so dependent on other people. And before Ways Away happened, yeah, like I just had this like giant vault of songs and MP3s of songs. Like, for example, there's a song, Samiam has a record. We signed to a new label, and we have 15 songs recorded without vocals right now, right?
Okay.
And
all right.
Jason's gone in the studio. He's going in for a third attempt or third session, so to speak, where he's gone in the studio for like almost 2 weeks, twice already. And he's sort of at the point where I would hope he would have been about 8 years ago.
Okay.
You know, because I don't think he does anything with them or actually sings on his own. He just, whatever. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's he has other more important things in his life, or he's uninspired, or whatever. But one of those songs is a song that I found on a hard drive. That was, I don't know, it was a practice room demo or it was like a shitty studio demo, but it was a song that of mine that was supposed to be on You're Freaking Me Out, which is 1996. And I figured it out and arranged it a little different. And he threw away the vocals because he doesn't like the lyrics or whatever, which is a bummer because I liked them.
Yeah.
But that's a song from 1996 that if we finish the Samiam record, if we do, it will be on the 2022 or 2023 Samiam record, which is, 27 years later.
Well, and I love, that's why I really wanted to talk to you as well, because I know that Ways Away has a record. And I thought Samiam, I just figured like the COVID thing kind of like delayed it and stuff. So like, I guess
it did. It did for a while, the Samiam thing. Basically, like, I personally started trying to make Samiam a record in 2014. And when we went to Australia, and in Australia, we had this big tour with like this band Body Jar and Blue Eye Medic, who were like in our world in Australia, like big bands, and Clowns, who are now really big, but they were younger then. And we basically played Thursday to Sunday. We were there for like 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks. And then we have these days off in the middle where we would just stay in Melbourne. And I like, it's like not like some Herculean task, but I figured out a way where we could practice at a club during the week. And, Sean and I had all these songs and we practiced and made up 5 songs right then and recorded them. And we were like, I was like, it's 2014. I was like, hopefully, yeah, Jason, you could like take this and a GarageBand, come up with some vocals. And then we played Riot Fest in Chicago the next year and we did a demo of those 5 songs and he didn't sing to them. I'm gonna go, oh, well, maybe in the next year you could sing some vocals. And then we played in Denver and we went to practice space and we're like boomboxy kind of recorded some other songs and maybe you could sing to these. And then 4 years ago, we were in Germany. We went to this big band's studio that's for free or we paid like almost nothing, record some more songs. And maybe you could sing to these songs, like maybe GarageBand or something. And he never sang to it. And then in 2020, we went to Green Day studio and recorded all 15 songs in their like practice room studio.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
Maybe you could sing to all these, and because we'll come back in 2-3 months, and we're gonna record like we did our last record for free in the real studio. And then COVID hit, right? And then time went by during COVID, and we recorded the drums. And then a couple months later, we went to Cadenceville and recorded all the bass and guitars. That was last August. And here we are in February, and Jason's gone in, like I said, for not for short periods of time, but like freaking maybe like 16, maybe more like almost like 18 days. And he's basically where he should have been in 2014, And I say this with like a little bit of frustration, obviously, because sure. Like I would like it to go, but more with a lot of empathy and stuff. He's like, I think he's 49-year-old man, and he has 2 kids, and he has, he manages a bar that he sort of set up with investors that's fucking up because of COVID, and he has his own goals in life that are not band related besides, wife and kids and job. In the old days, I'd be really mad. And like, I really like want to be clear to anyone when I do interviews. It's like in the old days, I'd be fucking pissed. I'd be like, God damn it. Like, lazy fuck. What the fuck are you doing?
I mean, I would be fucking furious.
Well, I'm saying that I would say that with a real lack of empathy and understanding of, like, we all don't live the same lives, yeah, or whatever. I don't have kids, and I'm the architect of my life where I just like path of least resistance, and like just I'm wide open to do what I want, including like being in unsuccessful bands or whatever, without going broke or whatever. And basically, like, I always say this. I know this is getting a little long-winded.
Wind away.
When people ask me, it's like, Samiam broke up in 2001. Like after like a little couple of tours we did for Astray. In my mind, we broke up then, and we never really got back together in the way that we were a real band. We ended up touring, and without really talking about it, we got back together, and we've done a couple of records, and we've toured the world over and over again. It's particularly like Europe, but Japan, South America, and Australia, like multiple times. And we haven't done a full US tour since that tour, but we will do the East Coast, we'll do the West, we'll go to the Midwest and stuff. And like compared to other bands, we actually just got back together and we're just a normal band. But in my head, it's like I never looked at the band the same after we broke up in 2001. But the reason why we broke up is because I used to do like the lion's share of like organizing things. And I booked a Japanese tour, and it was like, all done, posters, just all the work you have to do a tour. And of course, I didn't book it, Japanese people did, but that takes like 100 emails and just like lots of thought and like whatever, and or just bullshit organized thing. And sort of last minute, Jason's like, I don't want to do that. Let's do that later, right? Which I got really pissed off, and that wasn't the first time something like that happened. And I was like, fuck Jason, and without a fight or anything, not a fight, but just I was like, I can't do this anymore, and we broke up, right? And I look back on my attitude like with a lot of like kind of embarrassment, not to him, but to me thinking of myself, where I just feel like it's really a foolish attitude. It's like everyone, it's like he was like, you know, like in his late 20s, he actually like had lived for years, like James, the other guitar player, had lived for years without working because we made a ton of money. We didn't earn, but made a ton of money from being on major labels and doing like publishing deals. And they lived on it for years, you know, and what money came in from Samiam while I worked that whole time, right?
Yeah.
And so the end of that, around 2000, and the music industry was going shit, they both went bankrupt. They had all sorts of issues that I was very empathetic about. And if you asked me then, and I was younger and dumber, I would have gone, well, they fucked up, which is such lame. It's like just me not having empathy and not really actually thinking of what it means to live someone else in someone else's shoes, right?
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
And then when we like in the years after, you know, I still like I'm the guy, and Sean to a large degree, but not as much as me, would set up these tours, and when we did records, do a lot of it, and dealing with record labels, until you know, just like 2 years ago, like I still did it a lot. And so I get mad when I'd set something up and they go, I can't do it, or whatever, or they take it for granted, and like, of course, no thank you or anything. And somewhere like when Ways Away started, happened a little bit with Racket, but when Ways Away started, and I'm just really satisfied with Ways Away, even though it's like not a popular band and it's a struggle.
I'm gonna say yet because it's just so good. It's genuinely one of the best rock records I've heard in the last 5 years.
Okay, I like your attitude. That's awesome. but the chances of it like just like leaving the bottom of the music industry where we currently happily reside are very slim. And but I'm at the time of my life right now. It's like I'd like it to get more popular. I like to get to the point where we can draw like 400 people a night everywhere. That would be cool. But like if it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter because I'm just really happy with it, what it is. But again, I'm off topic. But when Ways Away sort of rose up unexpectedly, I really just went, you know what? I used to have just like this like epiphany about God, what an asshole I was in my head, because I never yelled at anybody. I never got mad at anyone. Probably did enough talking shit with my brother or my friends about like say Jason or whatever, or anyone in Samiam, that because I set something up and they don't want to do it or whatever, and they don't understand how much effort went into it on my part. And this like what I described about singing, like for the Samiam record, the old me would be really pissed, right? And the new me is just like, well, this sucks, like, you know. But I don't have like even a twinge of anger or ill feelings towards Jason towards it. I'm more like, I know Jason, no one wants to let anyone else down. I mean, sometimes people do, I guess, but no one wants to let anyone else down, right? But like whatever it is, like I said before, whether it's just like life's a little too complicated for him to focus on Samiam, or he has writer's block,
yeah,
or whatever it is, like it's what's happening with him right now. And he always likes to say that this is the shittiest way to do it, you know, him writing to by himself, which I'm just like, we've done all these demos and practiced so ad nauseum with these songs, and it's like being all five of us in a room together has not helped, you know, because we've done that ad nauseum over the last like 7-8 years. But regardless of that, or any excuse, like real or imagined, it's like it's like it's valid. And also it's like you can't force someone, like anything in life, that if you want to do something that's like co-op thing, you know, whether it's a relationship of any kind, even just with your wife or girlfriend, and they don't want to do what you want to do, or they don't want to do it how you want to do it, and you get mad, you know, you're the asshole. You're always the asshole, because that's what you want to do. It's not necessarily or how you want to do it, more likely. or when. And you can't force someone to just like do it what you want to do when you want to do it, right? And me wanting Jason to finish singing like 6 months ago, for example, is me. That's my world, my reality, my like desires and stuff. It's not Jason. It's like he's gonna do it when he's gonna do it when and if he can do it, right? And that's where we are with Samiam. And because I have Ways Away, even though Ways Away doesn't get to go tour around and make like a pretty decent amount of money and not have to worry about budgets and stuff, it's really rewarding and fun for me. We just finished our second record and I'm like really, really proud of it and stuff. It makes it a lot easier for me to just back off from Samiam and just not push at all. What I do worry about is like letting like our new label down, and
so you're not on Hopeless. So no longer Hopeless. It's something else.
No.
Okay.
No, it's better. Well, then I don't want to start talking about Hopeless, but like very dissatisfied with that label.
Well, it's funny because like so I have a friend and he plays in the band Taking Back Sunday, and when they signed to Hopeless Records, I was like, "Yo, you're fucking label mates with Sam I Am." That was like the only thing I gave a shit about. So it's funny. When
you're on Hopeless, you're not on a label with Sam I Am, especially like Taking Back Sunday. They're label mates with Neck Deep and whatever. Like, Sam I Am happens to have records on Hopeless, but we're not on that label. Like from their perspective, from Hopeless's perspective, like they just changed completely in every way. There's a couple people that work there that I love. But in general, that label I have like a lot of disdain for.
Okay. Yeah. I just thought it was funny. Like I said, like my buddy Mark, like when this was maybe it was 5-6 years ago or something. So like whenever they signed, I was just like, yo, because he knows I was like a big fan. I was like, you're fucking label mates with Sam I Am. And I think he actually ended up with some vinyl that he got, that I was supposed to get from him. So,
I mean, if you think of Hopeless, there was a time when it was seemed a little odd for Sam I Am to be on Hopeless, especially after we were on like major labels. But it was like Weaker Thans and Diligent 4 and some bands that made sense, and there was a vibe that that fit. And somewhere, early 2000s, they went from that to something like our new label is called Pure Noise, and it has hardcore bands and pop punk bands also and stuff. And it's not 100% perfect, like on paper fit, but we're like really happy to be on it.
But I mean, Astray, I think, was on there. And like for me, like in 2000, so that explains why I never saw you back then, because I was going to the Institute of Audio Research, which was like a tech school in Manhattan. And one of the dudes there made me a copy of Astray and something else. I don't even remember what it was, but that was the first time I heard the band. And it kind of like blew me away because I was always like I liked Smashing Pumpkins. I like loud guitars, but I needed melody, and I wasn't really too into like the punk stuff. And there was just something about Astray that made sense to me. Like I was coming from like the Pavement world. Sugar Copper Blue was like another album that just blew my mind. So like from that songwriting stance, there was like Astray just hit everything that I needed. Like to me, Mud Hill is like one of the greatest songs ever written, and the simplicity of it really, but it's just like those chords hit at the right place. Like those chords hit like For Whom the Bells Toll almost, like they're just like perfect power chords at the right place and stuff. So that album was my introduction to Sam I Am. And from there, it's just like everything that I know about songwriting. I know it's funny because you're playing a show with Jawbreaker, which I want to talk about those reunion shows. And it's Jawbreaker, Descendants, Face to Face, and Sam I Am. And in my head, I'm thinking like everything I know about songwriting is at that show. Like those 4 bands taught me everything, really.
Yeah, when I first started playing guitar, like my brother, I played drums for years before, and my brother played guitar.
Sweet Baby, right?
Yeah. And he taught me how to do a bar chord. We were in the basement of my parents, my mom's house, and in one afternoon day, I figured out how to do a bar chord and how to move a bar chord, like using 3 fingers and sliding up and down. I said, "Oh my God, I know there's a lot more to it than this." but this is kind of all you need to know. And I literally in a couple hours, I went from not knowing anything about guitar to knowing how to shittily move a bar chord around. And that first day I was learning, it was back in cassette days, I was learning how to play Descendants songs. I'm literally the first night I was like playing like Silly Girl or something. And the first week, months, it was like Doughboys and Descendants. So yeah, like for me too, Descendants, you know, like
Just yeah, totally. I mean,
I liked Face to Face, but I felt they were more like peers or whatever.
Yeah,
and John Baker were definitely peers. But yeah, Descendants for me, you know, like I don't spend a lot of time listening to Descendants now as like an old man, but like I definitely recognize that like that's the Descendants really are my Ramones. Like other people say other Ramones, that was my building blocks for punk and learning how to play an instrument or whatever. But for me, it was it was Descendants.
That's a great point, because to me, they might have been my Ramones as well. Because everything, like just like the songs were like, man, it started with me with Summary. So Summary had everything, you know, I had the cassette and I'm like, this is just fucking great. Like, you know, you hear Bikeage and all these songs like Coolidge. And then I remember you go to cover it and you're thinking that these are going to be like simplistic punk songs. I'm like, yo, these songs are actually pretty fucking hard to play. And then they moved. I remember like when they turned into All and $1 Million came out off of Pummel. I was like, yo, let's cover this song. And I'm like, yo, this song's really fucking hard to play. Like, I don't even understand like what he's playing.
Well, I mean, Descendants is like anything. It's deceptively simple. It is easy to play wrong, right, and play shitty, but it's like really hard to impossible to play right, you know. So like all music, you look at the like a lot of really simple hit songs from the whenever the 60s or 50s. They say, yeah, you can play that, but you're not playing it like right.
You're right, yeah.
So yeah. So and of course the bass for both those bass players is like not simple and like just use like crazy bass players playing crazy. But for me, for playing guitar, it's like right? With a bar chord, it's just sliding a bar chord up and it's chromatic, right? You know, it's just moving up like this. And I was like, within a day, I could play that shittily. And that's what got me into playing guitar, or helped me aboard. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna play guitar player. I'm gonna write songs and stuff.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long. I just had two more things that I wanted to bring up to you. You know, the last thing I'm going to say about Sam I Am is, you know, some people come out of the gate like with Appetite. And then from there, you know, like Appetite for Destruction, I mean, or like, you know, they come out really hard, like the first album. And I feel like Sam I Am is a band that somehow just got better. So I love, you know, Clumsy and You're Freaking Me Out, but I think Astray was like the peak. Like that was like the album that was perfect. And then the last two records were fucking great. Like there's so many fucking good, like anything off of Whatever's Got You Down. I mean, that's a fucking really killer goddamn song. Come Home. And then Trips had 80 West, Crew of None. How Would You Know? And the song that you guys always do live is El Dorado, which to me, like when I hear that, it's such a sleeper track that I didn't think anything of it. But when you play it, it's got that whoa. Like when I think of Iron Maiden's like Fear of the Dark, how it had like a second life once you hear it. It's like everyone, like the crowd gets into it. And those two records are fucking, I mean, honestly, like the last three records you did are the three best records I think you have. I mean, do you feel that way?
You know, I can't judge, you know, things I participated in, but I definitely think that like, if you look at like, you know, I think that all the records that I've done post, like if you're like an older person and you say, yeah, the peak is Astray. So 2000, I did two records with a band called Soleil. I did the Ragged Club record, and I did two Ways Away records, and two and maybe three Sam I Am records. I don't feel like, and part of it's probably because I didn't get jaded with non-success, and I didn't get soft with a bunch of success, right? But I just worked just as hard as I did 30 years ago at these songs, like, and throw away shit and just keep, I don't settle, you know, with just like, oh, this will do or whatever. So, you know, like I can't judge whether it's good or bad, but I feel like, you know, I put in as much as I ever have into it.
You could hear what for a moment. I feel like I don't feel like that. Like the last thing that weighs away, that single that you guys put out, I think maybe like that's going to be the Chic split. That song that was like one of the best songs of last year. Like it's fucking amazing. Like it's such a goddamn good song. So you're still like, I mean, you're still a part of this stuff that like, even if you say, you know, it's moderate success, it's the quality to people that hear it. To me, I'm just like, this is just as good as anything I've ever heard you do. So that's awesome.
I think I'm glad that there's people out there like you that like it. It's just like the blessing of not being popular, you know. Okay. Like you look at like Smashing Pumpkins, who I loved for years, like decades, and you brought up Guns N' Roses, and their recorded history, or Metallica is just like,
you're right.
Metallica has not put anything that I've even remotely liked out in like 32 years. And it's just like, they got super popular and super successful and soft and forgot why people like them, kind of thing. And we didn't get soft, you know, because we didn't have any success, you know, just like a very like mild success. It's like a lot of people don't agree with you, you know, and they think, oh yeah, Samiam sucks. And, you know, there's people that think that we sucked before Clumsy, older people, and people that think we sucked before Astray, and people think like last thing we put out good was Astray. I doubt there's anyone that thinks that Whatever's Got You Down is the best thing we ever did, probably, even though I think that's quite possibly the most even songwriting. It didn't sound so great, but I think actually that, to me, that record is the best songwriting Samiam record.
It's time. Like it's really good. Like the first three songs. Listen, maybe like they didn't like the recording, but like I said, like the first I would say 7 songs right off are just so good. Like every time I hear them, like it's just like Jason is just like on top of his game on those When We're Together. So good. But the song, like I always want to go back to Anything because I feel like it's such a deep cut, and you know, I love that. And it's funny that you mentioned about popularity, because one of the things for my band that I mentioned, when everyone's like, oh, you know, you guys have I don't even care. I'm like, the best part about having zero fan base like us is that I could write 5 different songs that don't sound anything like it. Like, you know, it's just like different like flavors, because it's like you're not disappointing like a fan base. I'm like, it's like, I don't know. It's like, this is an acoustic song. This is a heavy song. So it's funny that you mentioned that. And just the last thing I want to say, like, how excited are you for the Jawbreaker shows?
You know, this is going to sound funny. I didn't want to do those 2 Jawbreaker shows because I, you know, I'm not an idiot. I know that we're right where we're supposed to be. There's like 4, like Face is bigger than us. Descendants is huger, and of course Jawbreaker is like going through this like phenomenal like possibility. But I was like, I don't. If we're not going to finish this record, like I don't want to really play. I want to focus on finish record, and then if we're going to play, do we really want to just play shows that say, hey, we're the losers that have to play first? We've been in band for 30 years, you have to play first. And it's not like, you know, I'm not being wallowing and self-pity, but I was just like flying first it was just going to be 1 show before they added the second one. And I was like, you know, we got to fly out, and we have to get back in shape. We haven't played a show since 2020.
I was there. Union Pool. Oh no, that was the last Brooklyn show.
2020 was in Oakland.
Okay.
And it's just like Jason should be focusing on but I got outvoted, and so we're doing it. And now that we're doing it, we added a Santa Cruz show with Jawbreaker, where we're not first to 4, right? I'm like, okay, let's do this. but yeah, like first, like literally, I got outvoted. Those guys were like really into it, and I was just like, "What? I don't want to do that." But now as time's gone by, I'm like kind of looking forward to it. But at first, I was like, "I really do not want to do this. It's like not time." And like, also, we agreed to do it. Well, the other thing is like last year, they offered us the whole West Coast, and so like we'd be playing like at these big theaters in LA and San Francisco, and I was like, that would be really fun, like and now they're like, hey, we're flipping you like Denver and where you have to fly to, and Sacramento, which is like one of the armpits of California. No offense to Sacramento people or whatever.
Well, we're big in Sacramento.
And I was like, oh, thanks a lot, Jawbreaker. Like, here you go, first to 4 or whatever. Which I don't say, like, again, I don't say with an ego, because yeah, face to face are bigger than us. Descendants are way bigger than us. I just say it's like, it's like, do we really want to just play first to 4? Like, I don't know how it will be, but it could be like we play. It's just there 4,000 person room, and if we play in there and there's like 500 people because it's so early, that's gonna suck.
It's gonna. Listen, this is how I look at it. I'm looking at it from the other side. I'm looking at it as a fan, as anyone who's going to that show. That's a 4-band show right there. So like, I would just say from a fan's perspective, like that's fucking a legendary that's like a festival there.
Yeah, I mean, if it turns out well, I'll be happy, right? But even though it's a lot of fucking work to get to fly out to Denver during COVID and all that stuff, but if we play and we're just the opening band and people are shuffling around and it's like quarter filled because it's like too early, doors aren't all even open 100% yet, I'll be a little bit bummed, but whatever.
Listen,
it's not a big deal. But you asked me if I'm excited. It's like,
yeah,
Samiam and Jawbreaker has played together many times.
Yes,
and as much as I love Jawbreaker, I don't hold them in the bigger than life category that you might, because I know those guys for 30 years, and so playing
I don't.
Jawbreaker is not for me what it is for everyone else in the world. It's fun, but it's not like, yay, Jawbreaker, I can't believe it.
I don't actually. I like them a lot. I think they're a really good band. It's obviously I'm a way bigger Sam I Am and face, like, to me that should be like, Descendants, Sam I Am, Face to Face, Jawbreaker. But sorry, Blake. But I want to say this: I'm a bigger Jets to Brazil fan. I will say that. That's a great band. But to me, I'm looking at those 4 bands and their whole thing. They're fucking playing like Smoking Popes and Built to Spill in Chicago.
No, it's crazy. Like Lemonheads are opening up for them in a couple of places, and people don't remember, but then like 1993, like Evan Dando was in the cover of People magazine, like sexiest man in rock, and it's just like they were like big shit, and now they're like opening up for Jawbreaker, and which just goes to show it's like Jawbreaker is doing something really fucking special now with their popularity. Like personally, I thought it was like I figured it was like kind of a fluke that like 10,000 people watched them at Riot Fest, or
I was there.
What happened when they first came out, and now I'm coming to realize, no, this is like some kind of weird neat cultural thing, and it's like and mythical kind of rock thing, and I'm like proud to know them and happy for them. It's like, it's awesome. Like, it's like if Bob Ivy got back together, I'd be like, that's just like, or even now if Fugazi got back together, or if Minor Threat got back together, it's one of these just like mythical, like bit larger than life things, and I think it's super neat and stuff. And I love Jawbreaker. I don't listen to Sam I Am, so like when you were talking before about the order of bands, I'm just like, that's fucking awesome. But your question was like, how excited are you? And it's like, I hate to burst the bubble of anyone that would hope I would be excited, and I'm saying,
no, but yeah, you're being honest. And I'm gonna
fly to fucking Denver in the middle of COVID.
I'm gonna say one last thing. So like my cousin talking about Magical. This is going to what you said about Magical. There's a podcast called Bandsplain, and it's a really fun concept. This girl takes like a band that has like a cult following, and they break down like the discography with someone who's a big fan of theirs. And it's just like, oh, okay, like why are the Pixies big? Except is shit like that. My cousin, a girl, she was like 20, 21. She doesn't even listen to guitar-based stuff. I would send her stuff and she would like, it just get rock music, which just wasn't in her universe. One day she sends me the episode. She's like, I was listening to this podcast, Bandsplain, and they did an episode on this band Jawbreaker, and I fucking love them. And I'm thinking like, what? I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. I'm like even the production, I'm like, are you going to tell me that you like Bivouac or something? Like, it just didn't make sense.
It's the myth more than anything. Well, to me, it's the music's great, but it's Blake's lyrics for people that weren't there, and it's the music, but it's also this myth, and like that movie really made a myth. The movie made it all happen.
Yeah. Like
not only make it happen in the respect that got them together in an odd way, but it just this groundswell of like what I did a bunch of interviews when that wasn't announced, and people would ask me questions like, what do you think of this Jawbreaker thing before Riot Fest? And a lot of people said, dude, that's crazy. They're playing after like Prophets of Rage and people are going to leave.
Yes.
And people were like,
I was there. Yeah.
People didn't believe in the Jawbreaker, what's now the Jawbreaker juggernaut, right? And a lot of naysayers and jealous people, right? And I was like, that movie is like some kind of monster from Metallica. Like, it paints them like, to me, I watched the movie, it paints them as pretty boring people. It paints them like falsely as assholes,
slightly mean, right?
Unlikable people, which is completely false. But like, to me, if I didn't know Blake, I go, that guy's an asshole. What a like snobby asshole. And like the things that both him and Adam said in that about Chris, I would think they'll never get back together, because God, that movie, the whole thesis of that movie is two friends were in a band and broke up because they couldn't stand the girly nerd who plays bass, right? Like that's basically that thing, that whole gist of that movie. But like something, the Metallica movie, that's not other people's takeaway. The other people's takeaway was this mythical rad band. I love it, right? And it's so great. And yeah, so I find it odd because that movie, especially the Metallica movie, but also the Jawbreaker movie, I would think it would do more to hurt the myth of those two bands, but no, it didn't. It just, to me, it kind of blew the myths out of proportion. But I was going to say before about when I did interviews at the time, people asked me, what do you think about this Riot Fest thing, right? And I sort of got the gist that they were like, this guy's Sergie is going to be jealous of this band because look at his band, it's not doing anything, and this band's about to headline Riot Fest for $1 million or whatever they're getting paid. Surely he's going to talk shit, right? And I always said the same thing. It's like when the Pavement reunion happened in I think 2012. I love Pavement, one of my favorite bands of all time.
Me too, yeah.
But I love Sonic Youth for longer, and so I credit Sonic Youth as shaping my whole musical way of thinking. Like
me too,
like, more than the Beatles. It's Sonic Youth.
Wow.
And
okay.
I read an interview, or maybe I listened to a podcast with Thurston Moore right around, I think it was during that tour, and like they played the Hollywood Bowl in LA, and unfortunately for Sonic Youth was the opening fucking band. It was a lot like Samiam upcoming in Denver. We're not up neck and neck with Jawbreaker. There's just giant Jawbreaker, and forget about any kind of history 30 years ago. Samiam was just a little opening band. Just like if we were opening it for Green Day or whatever, we're just the opening band, right? But Thurston Moore said something that came off so sour grapes and jealous, even if he didn't mean it that way, it just came off that way. And it was like, yeah, we should have broken up. We never broke up. We should have broken up and came back, and maybe Pavement would have opened up for us at the Hollywood Bowl or whatever, or on this tour. And I remember hearing it and identifying with it, you know, if we're talking about Samiam and Rancid, or Samiam and Green Day, or Samiam now in Jawbreaker, about like, yeah, that just skyrocketed these bands just like thousands of miles above. We're not even doing the same thing that they're doing, you know, really, except playing music. But it, you know, and it brought that up, that quote from Thurston Moore in these interviews, saying, it's like, I don't want to answer your question, what do you think about this, like, Jawbreaker playing Riot Fest thing, and come off like that, because I don't think that Thurston Moore was being jealous, overtly at least, and I don't think that Thurston Moore had anything bad to say about Pavement or anything, but it sure fucking came off that way, like whether like inadvertently, like it's like, wah wah wah, look at the guy, he's jealous, and he said something like shitty about Jawbreaker,
and they took the bass player of Pavement.
Yeah, so basically what I'm saying is, like, when I got those questions back then, and if I do any more podcasts about this Jawbreaker shows that we're playing with it, so easily it could come off, and I have a fear of coming off like an asshole. Other people are like, I don't care how a stronger person doesn't care how they come off, right? But me, I don't want to come off as like, oh man, I sound like this jealous asshole talking about Jawbreaker. But I just said, I told people about that quote, and basically I used that maybe like 4 or 5 times and I explained that quote and how I felt about it, and didn't answer the question about Jawbreaker, right? Yeah. I just used that quote, so I didn't have to say like anything that would come off as jealousy, because when it comes down to it, really, like, if we're not talking to like a political me, fuck yeah, I'm jealous. I wish I was fucking headlining Riot Fest instead of you know, being in Sam I Am too.
No, I mean, absolutely, especially like coming with peers and they release, you know, Dear You, everyone shits on it, and then they fucking go away and then come back an X amount of years later. It's kind of crazy when you really think about it, you know?
You know, like, I'm friends with Jesse from Op Ivy, and I always used Op Ivy as the touchstone of just amazing outside the music industry, kicking ass in the music industry. Like, they did one tour, half-ass tour in a car. They put out like EP, 7-inch, some compilation tracks, and one perfect album. And, you know, for 36 years or whatever, 5 years, they've just, you know, just been icons of music to so many people, right?
Yeah.
And Minor Threat's like that too. And they never looked back. There's only one group of people, like 4 people in Op Ivy, and they never did a reunion. They never like got a new member. And it's so much more than just like these like handful of like, I don't know, they play up 20 great songs, or
yeah, amazing.
It's just, the myth is bigger than what it is, because as great as good as it is, and I'm just kind of like, you know, I use like that, and then I use the opposite side of the spectrum, who are 2 bands that flirted with that myth and holding on to that myth, and, you know, in a way squandering a lot of it, and that's Refused, Not the Drive-In. And
wow. That
when both those bands came out for the first tours, it was the same thing as Jawbreaker or what Op Ivy would be. They were huge, and they both put out like subpar records, and they also toured too much, because at the end of the Refused, I saw them at the Roxy, which is like maybe 600 person club, wasn't sold out, and at the Drive-In didn't go down to that extreme. They still could get like 4,000 people at a show at their last time in LA. But the myth was gone. It is dried up because they put out records and stuff. And I'm just like, so when I look at that, Op Ivy and Minor Threat and Fugazi both are they're holding on.
They're holding on.
They're not cashing out, and who knows what will happen in the future, but they own it.
Like the Misfits Misfits was another magical, mystical thing.
Yeah, but the Misfits, for how giant, they're a stadium band, but they're a mess because they have the other Misfits band, and they have so much garbage involved with them. They have the Christmas record. They're a mess. Yes, and I think they're also bullshit because like I didn't see the Misfits in these stadium tours, but like YouTube videos, I'm like, wow, this sounds like dog shit. Like this is like a farce.
I'm gonna say this. So my shout out to my buddy who actually booked that show at Madison Square Garden. He did a great job. So I saw them in New Jersey. It was as a kid, I was 15, and Walk Among Us was one of those records that changed my life. And so I knew that if this band ever got together the way they were, I felt like every year kids, gravitated to that album. So if they ever played MSG, I feel like they would sell it out. And they did. I saw them in New Jersey. It was fucking terrible. And then I wasn't even gonna go to the MSG show, but a friend of mine's like, hey, do you want to go? Like, I'll get you in to MSG. And I was just like, you know what? Let me go. And I went with my girlfriend, and it was The Damned. It was Rancid and the Misfits. And it was the greatest show I've ever seen. It was the show that I've waited my whole childhood to see, and I'll never see them again because they're never going to top that. But it was just like Op Ivy, every Misfit song that I ever listened to was like, I'm like, how'd this guy just write all these great songs? And
I agree completely. Yes.
Yeah.
But then you look at the 90s and you look about other shit, they just ran the name Misfits into the dirt for me. And but the main thing is the reason why, if you ask me, I say that whole Misfits stadium thing is like the biggest sellout maneuver ever. It's just because I can't speak for like Glenn Danzig, but it just seems like he hates those guys. He doesn't really love the Misfits legacy in the way that it exists in 2022, and he's just doing it because he's making a ton of money and because Danzig is sagging a little bit, right? Which, like, no matter how well he performs and like how you think that was like such a great show and stuff, like I don't believe it through his ears or eyes, because I just don't think he wants to be there.
I
at least
agree.
not in a pure way.
I agree because like once you move on, like I feel like he wanted, like he's like, I'm in Danzig, like this is what I do now. I don't want to fucking sing songs that I wrote when I was a teenager. So like on that side of it, like I definitely.
Or I don't want to do it with that guy that I hate.
That too, yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, but it's a weird thing about Jawbreakers, because if you watch that movie, you're led to believe that they really hate Chris, and It's like I didn't feel like when I saw Jawbreaker maybe 5 times since they got back together, not 3 times, and they're weird live because they don't talk on stage, not a word is uttered, and their body language is like 3 separate people. I have no idea what it's like when they're like talking or like eating together.
It's like the Pixies. Like the Pixies look like they answered a Craigslist ads, like a Craigslist ad, because like when I saw the Pixies, I mean, one of the, to me, probably the greatest American rock band on the planet, in my opinion.
Of course, yeah.
But the 4 of them, after watching the documentary, when they came back, I'm like, yo, these 4 people don't even really like hang out or talk, or they.
Yeah. No,
weird.
I saw the Pixies at Coachella when they were still fresh on your reunion.
Yes, Coachella 4, yep.
And they didn't utter a word to the audience or to each other. But Jawbreaker didn't either. Like Blake did the weird speeches, non sequitur, like poetic speeches to the audience that the audience was like, "What the fuck was that?" They didn't seem to even look at each other. I saw them together, like backstage. They went to our stage and watched us at Grows Rock, this festival in Europe.
Yep.
And they came together, the 3 of them, and they were standing with us together. But I took a picture with the 3 of them, but I don't think I saw them comment to each other. But I can't speak for them. I don't know if they dislike each other. But that movie, I mean, they seem like they fucking hated Chris. Like
I don't know them like you know them, but from watching the movie, that was like the shock to me. I was like, wow, this is an interesting take on things, you know?
They made fun and on camera of Chris. Like made fun of his voice. Yeah. Right. Like, yeah, like it's to me, if I didn't know them and didn't know anything except the lore, and I watched that movie and then I saw they were playing together, I was like, that bass player is going to agree to do this after that movie? Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm glad you answered the question. Are you excited? Yes, that was a long answer. I'll take it.
I'm getting more excited a little bit because besides Ways Away, well, I tell you this, Ways Away is playing 4 shows in March, and then we're playing end of March a Jawbreaker show, and then soon after we're playing those two Denver shows. And whereas before I was really not excited about doing that, and I was very excited about doing Ways Away because right now I would be in Europe, and that got canceled because of COVID, and I was really bummed.
And we were trying to get you guys on Long Island. We were trying to get you guys at
we were going to do we're going to do some East Coast shows at the end of last year. Yeah. And I'm just really excited about I was just really excited about Ways Away and just like about Samiam. It'll just be some money and it'll be fun to get together. I'm getting more excited about it, like more into the idea. But yeah, like you asked me, I have to be honest. I can't lie.
No, I love it. Listen, this has been really like a lot of fun for me, man. One of my favorite songwriters. So thank you so much for the time to basically hang out with us. Well, I usually have 2 co-hosts, but they're like, oh, you know, you do this one by yourself. They because we
opted out.
Well, we talk about movies. Like the last person we had on was the director of Waxworks. Remember those movies?
Waxworks?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that.
So, he's a really good horror director. So like, you know, we talk movies, music, and pop culture. But cool. I'm like, dude from Samiam. I'm like, I got this. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for doing it. And I will see you on Long Island when either one of your bands plays here.
Nice. Yeah, we'll probably play together then.
I believe so, for sure. I'm into it. All right?
All right. Bye, bud.
Later, buddy.
Chance